Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today we're going to be talking about the news, the stuff that's been at least in the news for the last 5 or so days now. The Israel-Iran conflict. Now, I didn't cover this when it first started unfolding because in situations like this, things happen so quickly, right? Things advance so rapidly that sitting here and talking about it is hard to do because within 15 minutes, which was what it would take for me to record a video, information can be basically outdated by that point in time. You know what I mean? It's just very hard to actually talk accurately about what's going on, but also the reason I want to cover it now especially is because of the growing concern over the last especially 48 hours that the United States may get involved in this conflict. Now, it seems like my opinion and most Americans' opinions here on the concept of America entering this conflict on behalf of Israel to help basically eliminate Iran's nuclear program and possibly even collapse the regime in the country and cause a governmental shift. It seems that for the most part, Americans are pretty opposed to the idea. And honestly, it's not fucking rocket science as to why this is an unpopular concept in America. And that's really what I want to talk about in this video because I really do fear that this is like the unfolding of the same script, you know, the same fucking formula that we've been spoon-fed in this country for half of a century. And I worry that if we fall for it again, you know what I mean, there's a possibility Americans could die. You know what I mean? I think that's the part when all of these people are chirping for war. Oh yeah, fuck it. You know, unsheathe the beast, bro. Let America go get them, man. That means Americans die. You know that? That means Americans fresh out of high school, young men with all the potential in the world in front of them, are butchered. They're killed. They're sent home in a fucking coffin with a flag over top of them. Now, of course, that's not all of them, and it's usually not even the majority of them in our case, but is it worth even a few or a couple hundred or a few thousand or whatever it is that could possibly happen here? The truth is, we really don't know what's about to happen, and I think for most of us, that's the most worrisome part. But in reality, if history serves us right, we do know what's about to happen. So now, when this all really kind of broke out in the first place, right, at least in terms of this more recent conflict, because it's not like this is the first time that Israel and Iran have traded blows with one another, especially when you consider all of Iran's proxies and whatnot in the region. But when this all broke out, okay, we were told by Marco Rubio and, you know, the media and whatnot that the United States had no knowledge, you know, oh, we didn't know that Israel was about to pull this off in terms of flying in and airstriking Tehran, all of these Iranian nuclear facilities, using the Mossad from inside Iran to drive around in targeted truck shootings and using drones to assassinate the head officials essentially in Iran, including not only just military officials and generals, but also literally people in government, you know what I mean? So when all of this broke out, we apparently didn't know, according to what we were supposed to be told. But then it came out basically a day later, not only from just President Trump, but also from reports in the media and also refuted claims by the Israeli government in response. It was told that we did know, okay? So somewhere along the line, Trump and all of these other politicians, they're lying somewhere, you know what I mean? So either we did know that Israel was about to do this, and we were even more complicit in this entire thing than we already were by supplying Israel with all of our weaponry, backing them with foreign aid and foreign policy, all these different things, because that's what Iran really hates us for, by the way. Iran really hates America because we support Israel, and Israel is their mortal enemy. So that's what it comes down to here, and they even said if the US gets involved, they start trying to shoot down Iranian missiles on behalf of Israel, or they, you know, strike inside of Iran themselves, that, you know, the US would be a valid target, and they may strike bases in the area for the United States, right? So it's a pretty worrying concept because obviously anyone knows we knew what was going on here, right? And like I said, the whole strategic ambiguity angle of trying to tell the media one thing and then the next day we're saying the other, it's not working. Iran, Israel, the general public, everybody kind of knows what's going on. You know what I mean? I think a lot of the times these politicians still think it's like 1950 and people just believe everything in the newspaper or whatever, or like they just believe the statement. It's like people can very easily cross-reference and like read back through things. So I don't know what the play was there, really. But now there's considering that the United States will actually join in this conflict. Now, in the last few days, Israel has been quite successful in their strikes in Iran. Like I said, they've hit a lot of like military leadership, they hit a lot of government. They have apparently, as of last night, taken out half of all the ballistic missile launchers that Iran has. They've decimated the Iranian Air Force. They've apparently at least obtained complete aerial superiority in the country. Apparently, like I'd said, the Mossad is driving around in Tehran with drones operated out of the back of trucks that they're using to assassinate politicians, okay? So this all started when apparently for the last few years, Israel has been building like a Trojan horse workspace for drones inside of Tehran, and they activated it during this entire thing as like a sneak attack. Apparently was quite successful, but there's a problem. Israel is trying to take out the nuclear facilities. That's what this is really all about. They claim that Iran was on the verge of enriching enough uranium to build all these nuclear warheads. Some reports said up to 9, some said 15, some didn't list a number, but that's the whole point here, is apparently they were on the verge of getting the nuke. And as Israel, apparently some countries in Europe, obviously the United States, they all say they don't want Iran to have a bomb. They're not allowed to have the nuke or whatever. And so now there's a pretty good chance that because one of these facilities is underground, like very deep underground, the Israeli Air Force is incapable of fully destroying this facility because they can't penetrate the earth enough to actually, blow it up. So apparently they have been asking the United States to consider using bunker buster munitions on, which obviously would be an operated thing by us. So this would be the US entering the conflict. We would blow this facility up, and obviously we would at that point be at war with Iran. Now, at least as of right now, if the Israeli claims are true, half of Iran's missile response capabilities at least are eliminated, and their country's governance is sort of in disarray right now. There's reports that prisoners are literally fleeing from the prisons. There's reports that some people inside the country, civilian-wise, are basically like cheering for the death of the regime. Apparently there are just basically a bunch of mixed arrayed emotions going on throughout all of this shit right now. And as it's all going on, Israel is basically wiping out Iran's military capabilities. So I'm kind of wondering at this point, will the US even really need to get involved? But apparently Trump has been mulling over the concept of it, and he's been making some interesting posts on social media, and there's been some things going on that have a lot of people worried. Number one, the G7 summit leaving, okay? So he left the G7 summit yesterday and came back to DC on like an emergency trip, and he ordered that the entire National Security Council be ready to meet him in the Situation Room when he returned. Now, obviously, this is a very weird thing to do. It probably would only happen in an instance where the US military was about to be activated to some degree. I mean, leaving a diplomatic summit with all these other powerful countries to go back to the Situation Room, which is the room where the president basically acts as the commander-in-chief. I mean, it definitely has a lot of people on edge. He's been tweeting, of course, Iran can't have a bomb. Well, I say tweeting, but he's using Truth Social, but he's posting Iran can't have the bomb. He's posting that he didn't come back from the G7 summit to work on a ceasefire deal. It was something much bigger than that. He's talking about how it's such a shame that Iran didn't listen. Now they have to pay the price. Vice President J.D. Vance is saying that Trump is not outweighing the option, I guess. I guess it's still on the table. You know what I mean? We're still basically within range of this happening. And I just think it's such a bad idea. I mean, now, the whole point of this is apparently, Iran is our enemy. We have to go over there and we have to stop them from getting the nuke. We have to stop them from getting the weapons of mass destruction. But here's the problem. We've heard this same thing before. In fact, we've heard it many times before. Back in Vietnam, there was the Gulf of Tonkin. We false flagged it. We gave ourselves an en route, basically, to go into Vietnam. Okay, so we faked an attack on ourselves, sent ourselves in, started a war. Saddam Hussein with the WMDs. Oh, Saddam can't have the weapons of mass destruction. Saddam's getting them. You know, we go in there. There's no WMDs. It's crazy how that works. But we went in there. We got ourselves in a war there. We wrapped ourselves up in a fucking headache there. It's weird how that works once again. Right? This is the way that we do things, okay? This is the justification phase that the US government does. And honestly, I mean, when you look back even at Trump's like campaign rhetoric, it really is odd that this is how quickly things have turned. This was the guy who, from the beginning of his campaign, all the way back in 2015, before his first election, this was the anti-war guy. You know, this was the we shouldn't have been involved in Iraq guy on the Republican stage. This was the guy during the last election cycle, right, was saying that Kamala was going to lead us into chaos and that he was going to be the one who started no new wars and it was going to be America first and we were going to stop getting involved in all these problems elsewhere and we're going to bring our military back and we're going to make it better. That is not what's happening here. In fact, this is just us starting another war that is going to take way too much effort, energy, everything out of the country. I mean, nobody wants this. Nobody at home supports this. Really, the only people I've seen voicing any support for a war effort right now are the politicians. And that's like the exact way this always ends up playing out. You know what I mean? This is the exact route that it always goes. The public opposes any sort of war or prolonged conflict or getting ourselves involved in this shit at all. But the military and the politicians, they want the war, you know what I mean? And of course, when you look at the front lines, if it ever does, God forbid, come to that, it's not going to be the senators and the representatives' children or the judges' children. It's going to be the normal class, you know? It's going to be the guy who didn't get good grades in high school. It's going to be the guy who wanted his fucking college paid for, God forbid, right? Those are going to be the people who are over there in this conflict. And I mean, a lot of the people cheering for war, they do this like weird, like mythological justification where it's like, America should impose its will. I mean, we're the strongest military. Yeah, we're the strongest military, but being number one in the military realm doesn't mean that people don't die. You know what I mean? And that's the problem here. That's the problem that I have with this war, is it shouldn't even be one American who dies over this. You know what I mean? It shouldn't even be one casket that comes home with a flag on it. But the way that things are progressing, one wrong step, and it could be thousands. It really could. Now, thankfully, one of the things that I think a lot of people were worried about is if this really blows up, what does this do for all the other geopolitical foes of ours out there? Because obviously, historically, Iran has been a lot more aligned with Russia, with China, with our enemies, essentially. And of course, for us, that is a problem. They're considered like this big axis of evil in the modern day. But we did get good news over the last 12 to 24 hours. Apparently, Russia, obviously, they have their own war to fight. They have their own situation going on with Ukraine. But they have decided to not support the Iranian regime in their fight against Israel. So it doesn't seem like Russia is getting involved basically at all. I did see that maybe they wanted to negotiate like a peace deal or something, but as it stands, they're not like fucking sending in troops or anything, which that is honestly great news, because I think a lot of people are worried that this can spiral into actual World War III. Now, I and many others would argue that World War III has already been going on for years. The problem is everybody wants to quantify World War III as basically the same thing as the first two, where it's like, oh, this side versus that side. You're in the trenches, soldier. Man your flank, soldier. That's not what it is anymore. It's some 18-year-old kid in a field with a rifle, and an explosive drone flies over his head and fucking splits him in half, and the footage gets uploaded to Twitter and gets 600,000 likes. You know what I mean? It's proxy warfare. It's shit like that. You know what I mean? It's Ukraine. It's this whole Iran, Israel, Gaza conflict, okay? It's the impending possible war in the Pacific between China and assumedly the US, Japan, Taiwan, all these other countries. It's already fucking here. And that's the whole point of this video. Like, you see the title, it doesn't matter if there's no declaration of war. That's the thing I think people keep some people, well, there's no declaration of war. The government doesn't say we're at war. You know, they're not sending troops in, man. We're not at war. We're sending billions of dollars per year to 2 different continents as of right now to fight wars on the behalf of other countries so that we can, I guess, one-up our geopolitical foes, so we can support our stances of our allies. You know what I mean? This is warfare. It's not direct warfare, but it's proxy warfare. It's, I guess, in a way, the second Cold War. I guess you could call it that. But also, I think a lot of people forget that Africa currently has wars going on in it too. They don't get reported by the Western media hardly at all, but there is gruesome conflict happening in Africa too. So as of right now, there are significant wars on 3 continents. And one wrong move in one of them, and the United States is directly involved. We're sending our aircraft over there. And that's the thing. As of right now, the United States is sending the USS Nimitz strike group from the Pacific into the Middle East. That's where they're going to meet with the already existing there USS strike group. So there's 2 strike groups that are going to be in the Middle East. Apparently, we're also sending over dozens of stratofuelers, which basically are fueler aircraft that just, you know, your planes are up in air. They got to come down and get fueled. You cut that out. You put the fucking fuelers up in the air. They connect to the plane midair. You know, it's logistics, right? But the point is, this shit is not getting sent over there for nothing. We're not sending all of these military assets and a buildup over there. The president is not flying back from summits with our allies and with other powerful countries to hit the situation room. We're not, you know, wish-washing on, oh, we may step in, we may not step in. We may step in, we may not step in. We're not doing this for nothing. So there are a couple, I guess, good things in all of this that seem to be, I guess, like the good tidbits, at least from what I can see. Trust me, I'm no expert myself. I'm a fucking idiot just like everybody else, right? But at least from what I've been able to see, like I said, Russia has already announced that they really aren't supporting Iran in this entire thing. So that takes out a pretty major concern. China doesn't seem like they're ready to jump in on board. They have their own shit to worry about. They are not looking for a conflict right this second either. So it looks like Iran is kind of just alone in this one, you know? So I guess that's a good thing. At least this won't turn into a full outright, hopefully, World War III scenario. But also, Israel, like I said, has taken out a lot of the ballistic missile defense and launching systems for the Iranians. So any Iranian attacks against the U.S. bases in the region or against U.S. forces, it looks like they would be at least partially diminished just because of that. You know what I mean? It's hard to launch a full-scale attack with only half your equipment, especially when you're still trying to defend said equipment from the ongoing onslaught, basically, that you're facing. So, but ultimately, it still looks like no matter what, that if, especially if this goes on much longer, the U.S. could get involved. I mean, if Israel somehow wraps this up in a couple of days, maybe we won't. But I mean, we're getting ready, and we're posing like we're ready to jump in. Now, obviously, the United States as a country, we have a pretty massive war fatigue going on in our society. I mean, is there a generation of Americans alive who haven't spent their whole lifetime witnessing the country at war, who don't have multiple family members who have served in some war? All of them, by the way, being on every other continent on the planet. I mean, as a child in grade school, we were writing letters to the soldiers in Afghanistan, some of which, like one of which at least, was the father of one of the kids in my class. So we're in grade school writing letters like, hope you do well in the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Love your son, you know what I mean? And it's like, we were doing that. The generation before, they, you know, witnessed Desert Storm. Before that, you know, there was Vietnam. Before that, Korea. Before that, World War II, World War I. So everybody has just constantly been seeing war. And also on top of that, the last several wars that the U.S. has fought, excluding Desert Storm really, have been geopolitical failures for the United States where, yeah, we'll go in and we'll whip ass against the military, you know, like Saddam's army or whatever, or like going into Afghanistan. You know, we can go topple a country in a couple of months. Nobody wants to see this shit anymore. Nobody wants to see their brother get sent off, their cousin get sent off, their friends get sent off. We're tired of this shit. And it's because none of these wars are returning anything. We're not gaining national glory. We're not gaining resources, really, at least like a considerable enough amount to really care about this shit. In fact, these strikes on Iran that have happened have made the price of oil spike. So you strike a major petroleum producing country, you're blowing up their oil fields, you're toppling their government, And then we're supposed to spend all summer with low gas prices. Doesn't really seem too likely. Like I said, right now they are fucking going through the roof. Where I live, they were up 60 cents in the matter of a couple of days. So I just don't see any American purpose in this fight. I mean, this is not a war for us. You know what I mean? They keep talking about, oh, well, Iran's gonna get the nuke. Iran was a couple of weeks from getting the nuke. They could have had multiple nukes. They were on the verge of the nuke. You know, it's like, oh my fucking God. How many times do we have to hear the WMD excuse? You know what I mean? We've heard it time and time again. First, oh, Saddam has weapons of mass destruction. We've got to do something about that. We went in, guess what? There were no WMDs, okay? The Vietnam War started because of the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which was a false flag operation where we falsified attacks by the Viet Cong on our ships so that we had justification to go to war with them over communism. That's where we're at with all of this shit. And that's what's been happening for 50, 60 years now. Somewhere across the world, we'll have some sort of geopolitical situation that seems advantageous to us to get militarily involved. We justify it with some wishy-washy excuse. In this instance, it'll be because Israel struck them, they're weak right now, and we want to eliminate their nuclear capabilities. I mean, that's what this is all about. This is all about preventing Iran from getting nuclear weapons after a deal was already signed a decade ago. That deal was ripped up by Trump, and then nothing was ever put in place again. Biden didn't get a new deal. Trump did not get a new deal. Trump gave them a 60-day deadline recently to get a deal done before shit like this could happen. And, well, there was no deal because Iran is going to get a nuke. That's their whole ideology. That's the plan, right? They don't want other countries telling them they can't have a nuke. In the eyes of Iran, they need the nuke to guarantee their survival. Obviously, Israel and everybody else seems to disagree with that, but that is the reality from their eyes. Now, right now, it seems like there's a bit of a mixed response going on in Iran. There's been reports that apparently prisoners are escaping the prisons. Apparently, some people are in the streets cheering for the death of the regime. They're hoping that the supreme leader is killed. It's been just obviously a whirlwind. I mean, the country's under attack. The government is basically starting to collapse. Israel did kill a good portion of its high-end leadership. They've struck a lot of the military sites. They've killed researchers. They've done a lot of damage to Iran. In fact, Iran is on the verge of collapsing at this point. I mean, this war is for the rest of the Middle East. You know what I mean? This war is not for America. The whole point of Trump's campaign, all the way back to 2015 before his first term, no new wars. We should have never have been in Iraq. He was the guy on the Republican stage arguing against going to war and fighting and all this other shit. This election cycle, he campaigned on no new wars, America first. We're going to build our military back up strong. We're going to stay out of foreign conflicts. We're going to solve the Israel-Palestine crisis. We're going to solve the Ukraine-Russia war. None of these things have happened so far, and in the instance of this Iran situation and Israel, it has now spiraled into war, you know what I mean? Both of these countries have struck each other. There is no deal. Iran is not probably going to negotiate now because most of their leadership is dead and they don't trust America or anybody else. I mean, their own so-called allies are turning their back on them. The United States basically acted like, you know, we wanted to do negotiations and diplomacy. We did all of that. And then obviously, even though we did this to save face, you know, we had all the negotiations and tried to work out the deal, they still got bombed immediately after anyway. You know what I mean? So they're talking about, oh, even Trump's like, I hope we can still make a deal. I don't really know how we're going to make a deal with a country that is getting blown to smithereens. I mean, half their government is dead, you know? Like, a pretty good portion of their military leadership and their government structure is fucked. I don't really see the negotiation here. And on top of that, Trump just posted that Israel and the United States know where the supreme leader is hiding underground and that they could basically kill him if they wanted to. So if you kill the leadership in the country, I don't really see who we can negotiate with anyway at this point. I think the negotiation part of this all is pretty much over, at least in my opinion. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope they make a deal or something and this doesn't spiral further. I just don't want America to be in a shit position because of this, and I don't want Americans to die because of this. I mean, we have so much more shit going on that we need to be worried about. We have so many other problems that we could be spending our money on other than another fucking forever war. Because once we topple the government in this country, are we going to do what we did in Iraq and Afghanistan where now we have to spend 10, 15 years and $1 trillion building this country back up just for it to inevitably fucking hate us again? I mean, look at Afghanistan, right? We spent 20 years rebuilding this country, trying to get it to fucking basically embrace Western ideals or whatever, and the Taliban runs the country today. And not only that, but they paraded around our military equipment that we abandoned there. Oh, and by the way, all of the Afghanis who helped the United States by being translators and informants during the war effort there, they were all left behind after being promised they'd be fast-tracked to citizenship in the United States. So we show these people in the Middle East that even if they do make a deal with us and they do work with us, we end up showing them that negotiation and trying to be diplomatic with us actually fucks you over even more in most instances, because all of those people who got left behind were probably killed by the Taliban, right? They were probably killed or tortured or imprisoned. We're not setting ourselves up for anything good with any of this. I mean, I think that goes without being said. Like I said, there's a reason the majority of Americans don't support this. Trump got voted in on the premise that he wasn't going to start any new wars. This is exactly, I mean, we're not even 6 months in and we're already on the cusp of war. This could be a disaster for Trump in terms of like the midterms that are coming up, in terms of like his legacy in the second term, everything, right? It's not a good move for him, his administration, and it's just something that nobody wants. We don't want to deal with this shit anymore. It just sucks, man. But honestly, I hope that somehow this gets fucking resolved without us being involved. You know what I mean? Like, if America can stay out of this by any means, I mean, once again, we're already in it because we definitely supplied Israel with intelligence. We definitely support the action that's going on. All of our politicians have voiced support for Israel. All of the media is voicing support for Israel in this conflict. So this is also a byproduct of America. You know, this is something that we are complicit in. We are involved in. But in terms of us kinetically being involved, you know, with boots on the ground or planes overhead, just keep us the fuck out of it, man. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. So anyway, with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel. Follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at SubTheOptimus. Make sure to check out Shoptimus down below. Thank you to my Watch Optimus subscribers. Your support helps the channel tremendously. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus. Well, not supporting America getting involved in Iran, and signing out.